Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to an amazing game from the TZEC season 23 Premier Division. So we have here two top engines, Stockfish 15 and the Stockfish engine, and the cool part about this game is that they'll play my favorite opening, the so-called 150 attack against the modern defense. And the 150 attack is really a beautiful approach, it's really a beautiful method how to beat the Pirc defense or modern defense. And I've recently created a mini series, sort of a playlist, sort of a course about the 150 attack from White's perspective. Here's the link, please check it out if you have trouble maybe against these types of structures, against this kind of defenses. You can have really great preparation, and we'll add also this particular game into our playlist because here Stockfish 15 played also, I think, very important strategical ideas, but also very cool tactical shots in the 150 attack that I think are very common. So I think this game really deserves to be on our playlist of the beautiful 150 attack. So let's see now the game. Let's see Stockfish 15 playing the 150 attack. So here Stockfish opened with the move e4. Stockfish's response was g6, the modern defense. We have now d4, bishop to g7, knight to c3, d6, and now you see here Stockfish is playing the 150 attack approach. Bishop to e3, queen to d2 is the idea that h4, h5 will launch a flank attack. Try to trade off here the dark square bishops and maybe get the queen somehow into the game, trying sort of a queen and rook battery on the h file, and then maybe even deliver checkmate. For instance, if black castle is on the king side, then you could have a really aggressive approach on the king side. So I've explained many of these ideas in our 150 attack course, so as I said, please check it out, then you understand also this particular attack by Stockfish better, how Stockfish is of course playing the game here. So in the continuation we have now a6, and this is now really the most often played, I think, approach of blacks, because black is trying now to expand on the queen side. Many times the white is castling queen side, black is castling king side in these types of structures. So black wants to be also fast. Black is saying, if you castle on the queen side too early, then I'm already there, then I'm already attacking you with b5, b4, maybe if possible even a5, a4. So black wants to have already sort of an attacking preparation here on this side of the board. So Stockfish continues with the plan, queen to d2. We have now b5 immediately, and now you see h4. So we have now really an opposite side attack game. You see black is attacking the queen side, white is attacking the king side. So who is faster on the attack will probably win the game. So here h5, which also meets with our idea to stop our opponent's progress. Here h5 is also a common move. It's not allowing, of course, h5 to be played here by white. So in the continuation f3, we have knight to f6, and now after queenside castling, now knight to c6 here by Stockfish. Stockfish is preparing now also the move e5. The move e5 is very common also in these types of structures, because you want to keep the center closed, because in many of these occasions you can also expect maybe black to stay a little bit longer with the king in the center. Sometimes black is staying through the whole game in the 150 attack, in the modern defense with the king in the center. It's not allowing to be attacked here on the king side. This is also an idea that you should be familiar with, because if white plays really an aggressive method, plays g4, g5, then you want to not, of course, basically run into your opponent's attack. So that's why this move knight to c6 is a preparation to play e5, hoping that white plays maybe the move d5. Okay, white has a space advantage in the center of the board, but then the center is blocked out, then the center is closed, and there are not so many attacking opportunities in the center of the board. So this is now a common also preparation here by black. Although probably the better idea that I would recommend here black to play is to play knight from b to d7, with a clear idea to expand on the queen side. This is much better in my opinion here for black. Knight to d7, c5, and you see you already there, you could attack the position, then you can now also play b4. So black has also good chances in this particular line. But okay, here knight to c6 was played. We have now king to b1, we have now e5, d5, and now after knight to e7, okay, the knight is rerouted. We have now a similar structure like in the King's Indian. If you are familiar maybe with the King's Indian defense, then many times this knight comes on e7, and then of course you have also now the opportunity to expand with the move f5. But f5 would be very risky here now for black. It's not the same like in the King's Indian, because you have already advanced the pawn on h5, and now if you play f5 you could have really too many positional problems. If you advance also too much on your side of the board, then you could have many weaknesses in the position. So far in my opinion, in these types of structure, f5 should not be played. So now comes knight to h3, and this is Very important move, I think, because knight to e2 would be quite risky, because then you get b4, and look at this, when you take over here on the e2 square, then you don't have a good retreating square now with your knight. I messed up many times in the 150 attack from white's perspective, this position where I cut off my square, my escape square for the knight on c3. Now with the move b4, look at this, you have to play a weird move like knight to a4, and now after bishop to d7 you have to play something like b3, but now we just grab the knight here, and after b takes a4, look at this, the pawn structure is messed up. In the near future we can somehow maybe even sneak in with the queen. I think there are certain squares and certain spaces that black can use, of course, in the attack for sure, so this is not something that you want to get, of course, such a messed up pawn structure in front of the king, so you should be careful. So that's why here the knight is developed on h3. It is a little bit weird to place your knight on the edge of the board, but actually it is quite good to have the knight like this, because you can play knight to f2, and then you are supporting the potential g4 attack. You can play knight to f2, bishop to e2, and then with g4 you can also have, I think, fun here. You can expand then, of course, on the king side. What black can do, and it's also not a rare case, is maybe to take out your knight on h3, but this should not bother you. Although black loves, of course, this light for bishop, and you love, of course, also your knight that could support, as we said, the attack with the knight to f2. It's not so good, I think, for black to go into these lines. Look at this, rook takes h3. Now after move queen to d7, probably black would love, of course, control further the g4 square. Again, you should not make the mistake with this one. Bishop to e2 would be suicide, because again you get b4, so don't take the square on e2 for your knight on c3. As I said, I made many times the mistake in blitz bullet games. I've lost, I think, 10-20 games for sure when I placed the piece on e2 and lost simply the minor piece here on c3, so be careful. So as I said, here again, bishop to e2 is not working, but you should not be worried. We just play rook to h1. We are retreating. It is a strange move to retreat with the rook again, but now you launch a flank attack again. We can play bishop to g5, attacking the knight that's controlling further the g4 square, and now after something like b4, okay, black has his fun. Plays maybe aggressively here on the queen side with the move a5, but now we can play g4 immediately. Look at this, our attack is rolling. We can now break through here with the move h5. Afterwards, if you want to take, of course, we can include the bishop into the game. Rook to g1 is going to happen. Finally, look at this, both of these files are open. Now you have a perfect attack against black's king, so you should not be worried. So as I said, even if your opponent takes out here the knight on h3, so that's why after move knight to h3, here bishop to d7 was played by Stofles. Stofles is also trying maybe to play c6, but c6 is always risky. Notice after d takes c6 that you have a weak d6 square, so it's not so easy for black to play the move c6 or c5. That's why, in my opinion, this line with knight to d7 instead of knight to c6 would have been much more correct, because you have already the opportunity to play then c5, which you cannot play now in this particular position. So after move bishop to d7, now comes the idea, knight to f2, bishop to e2, and the progress with the move g4. So we have queen to c8, so here Stofles is controlling further the g4 square. We have now knight to e2, we have queen to b7, and now knight to c1. This is a beautiful maneuver by Stockfish 15, because Stockfish is getting now the knight on d3, and from this square, this knight controls very important squares when it comes to the defense, to the defended position, because now the position could be open in the near future, and you want to have at least one minor piece in front of the king that's protecting the king in a good way. Now with knight to d3, I think you have a perfect piece that's controlling the very weak b2 square. In the beginning, it doesn't seem that this is a weak square, but many times this diagonal is opened. Many times this diagonal will be opened here, and when the dark square bishop comes into the game, then you have really some worries around the square b2. So that's why this maneuver to get the knight on d3 was also a solid game here by Stockfish 15. So we have now b4, bishop to e2, a5, expanding on the queen side, and now you see g4 simply continue the pressure on the king side. So Although black didn't castle on the king side, still we have at least some ideas how to attack the position. At least we can expand here with the move g5, kicking with the knight. So see black stayed now really for a long time with the king in the center. We have now a4. Stofflis is also attacking now the position on the queen side in really an aggressive way. But now after move knight to d3, rook to b8, we have now g5. The knight has to escape, and now comes this idea f4. So that's the problem about the move knight to d3. So as I said, the bishop will come into the game, but now actually we can play f4 because this is the only way to attack the position. This is the only way to make breakthroughs on the king side, because here when we watch this structure h4 g5 and h5 g6, it's really blocked out, so you cannot do anything there. Maybe you can sacrifice something, but I think the only way to let something roll on these two files is maybe to sacrifice something, knight to g4 and maybe h takes g4, then you continue with the h5. But this is of course risky. You have to calculate this in a good way if this attack is already working. So that's why the only way to make breakthroughs on the king side is now the move f4, which is again risky because you're kind of opening here the long diagonal for the Dashko bishop, and that's what makes this beautiful knight to d3 move much more beautiful, because the knight is now, as we said, a good defensive piece. So after move f4, we have king side castling. So now Stofflis feels secure that finally castling is a possibility, because suddenly with the move f4, Stockfish is attacking the center, and then you should not stay with the king in the center. So you see, you cannot have it all. You cannot have protection all over the board. So now you see, when Stockfish didn't have the attack on the king side, then attack the center, it's really wild how Stockfish making progress here. So in the continuation, we have now f takes e5. We have now an interesting choice by Stofflis, rook to e8, and now rook from h to g1, trying now maybe somehow to open the g file. So far the g file is really locked by the spawns, but actually in the near future, if we sacrifice something, if the spawns are rolling on the g file, then the g file could be really useful in the attack. So I've analyzed also this one, e takes d6. If you play instead of rook to g1, this is again not good, because first of all it opens the long diagonal for the Darsko bishop. Then of course black takes. Okay, you can maybe try f4, bishop to f4, attacking the pawn on d6, but actually look at this, after queen to b6, bishop to f3, suddenly with the move a3, look at this, black is taking over here. You have to maybe play b3, and now in the near future we can expect maybe the queen to sneak in. So that's why you should be careful when you are locking, when you're opening here the long diagonal. So this could be very risky now for white too. So that's why after move rook from f to e8, here Stockfish plays rook to g1, is saying I will keep now the dark square diagonal locked. If you want to take of course with the bishop, I'll take out here with the knight. If you take out with the pawn, then your bishop is blocked out by its own pawn. So it's really good defensive strategy also that Stockfish played here. So now comes knight to f8, and now the fun really starts. So from this point on till this moment, it was a really positional struggle, positional battle. Both engines try to search for opportunities, try to search for the best squares on the board. But now the tactical beast comes. Now Stockfish plays an immortal attack, plays a rook, bishop to h5, sacrificing now the bishop for the pawn. You have to accept the challenge, but now with knight to f4, look at this pawn is weak. In the near future, knight to f6 could happen, and as we said, now it's very cool that you have your rook on the g file, where already the king is now, for instance, if the g file opens in a good way, then it's a devastating attack here for black. So in the continuation, we have now bishop to g4. Here black is trying desperately to lock the g file, not allowing some attacks on this file, but Stockfish plays another aggressive move, rook to g4. So Stockfish is really greedy here. Stockfish sacrificed again the exchange, now is now down a whole rook, but after h takes g4, knight to g4, look at this, knight to f6 will come, knight to h5, knight to f6, again rook to g1 is possible. And the bad side of this position by black is that you don't have counterplay, you don't have so many good moves. So let's see possible continuations. You could play d takes e5. In the game, bishop to e5 was played by Stofflis, but let's see now for instance move d takes e5. If that happens, then again we have this idea, knight to h5. You have to play something like knight to g6, but look at this, knight to f6 is going to happen, and we have a fork, so we'll grab the exchange for sure. But actually you don't have to even go for the exchange. You just play bishop to c5, you just continue the pressure here, you lock the knight. This knight is also a little bit paralyzed. Maybe black could try to attack here with the move b3, but then you just pass through, you create sort of a structure that cannot be attacked. The b file is locked. That's now the most important thing. The pawn is protecting us. The pawn on b3 is actually protecting here white's king. And now in the continuation, after queen to a6, queen to e3, maybe c6, you cannot play in order to open here the c file, because you get just d6, you get d7. This is a very bad pawn that you could handle. You can maybe try rook to b5, attacking the bishop on c5, but actually it's not getting better, because you cannot really leave your protection of the 8th rank, because if you take out now the bishop, then of course also the rook is hanging. So many attacking opportunities here are for white. You can also play something like h5, h4, h6, h7. So everything is working basically here. Although white is down the whole rook, but look how really monstrous this attack is by Stoff15. So let's go back. So after move knight to g4, here Stoff played bishop to h5, bishop to e5 instead of d takes e5, but now comes knight to h5 anyway, with of course this beautiful fork idea on f6. Now both of these knights are controlling the square. So after c takes b3, we have now a takes b3, again a3, simply passing through, locking every file now in black's position. Black cannot now create attacking chances on the queen side. Very important defensive strategy here for Stoff15. We have now queen to b5, and now bishop to d4 creates of course now an open diagonal for the queen, and now knight to f6 could be devastating with the support of the queen on d4. This could be a very dangerous attack against black's king. So we have now knight to g6, knight to f6, again this fork. We have king to g7, and now h5. Stockfish continues simply the pressure on the king side, and has now really good chances, because now the knight has to move. This long diagonal will be opened. The rook can be included of course into the attack. So again, great chances for white. So we have bishop to d4, queen to d4, rook to e5, cementing now this diagonal. Let's see what happens if you play knight to e5. In the beginning, it seemed to me more logical that you're not giving up your exchange again, that you're placing your knight in the center of the board, but it's not getting better. You just play queen to f2, and look at this. You play knight to g4 probably. Okay, we play knight to g4. Knight to h7 seems logical because you're controlling the f6 square. This is also perfectly fine. But now again with this idea, queen to d4, you play king to g8, actually g6 is working. So there's not really a good way to protect everything here. The f6 weak, the f6 square is always weak. So with the move g6, you're breaking through here, and it's a position I think that black can resign. So really well stuff. So let's go back. After move queen to d4, as we said, rook to e5 was played. We have now queen to d2. We have rook to a8, queen to h2. We have now rook to g5, but now finally Stockfish takes, h takes g6. We have rook takes g6, knight to h5, delivering a check. Now comes a discovered check. You have to play here king to g8. Now Stockfish grabs the rook, and we have now a situation where the material is equal, but of course white is much better, because white has still this devastating attack on the h file. So we have now rook to h1, trying to here deliver an annoying check on h8. We have queen to c4. We have now queen to h8, the check. Now check, rook sacrifice again here by Stoff15. We have knight to h7, queen to h7. Now you have to play king to f8. We have a new check, king to f7. Now the knight is coming into the game. We have king to e7, queen to g7. You have king to d8. So here Stofflace would love, of course, to play something like king to c8, king to b7, escaping from this attack, but actually it's not working. Queen to g8, king to e7. We have queen to e6. King to f8, and now after move queen to f7, it was a beautiful checkmate here by Stockfish15. So really great game. This game really deserves to be now on playlist of the 150 attack. So here's the link of our whole playlist. You can also check it out. Please try this attack, because I think you can solve many of your positional problems of this modern defense ideas by black. The 150 attack is the natural approach. The 150 attack is an aggressive approach, but I think you can really have fun applying these ideas, because it's a one-way ticket. Sort of, you are the one that is attacking the position. Your opponent has of course some chances on the queen side, but you see, as I said also in the middle of this video, you cannot, from black's perspective, you cannot actually protect everything. In the beginning, you see Stockfish started with this king side attack, which actually didn't work because black stayed with the king in the center, and when the move f4 came, actually Stockfish also attacked the center. Then black decided suddenly to change the direction of the game, castled actually kingside, but still with this monstrous tactical shot on h5 that happened, we saw that advancing the pawns also in the beginning of black, when black is advancing with move h5, is also very, very risky because you're creating weaknesses in front of your own king. So Stockfish used these weaknesses and created this monstrous attack against Stockfish. So great game in my opinion. It was really straightforward, the one-way ticket here, attack by Stockfish 15. If you want to see more about the 150 attack, as I said, please check out our playlist. Here's the link. And if you want to see maybe more Stockfish 15 and some other brutal top engine games, here's our playlist of the commented chess games played by computers. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.